Who killed Charlie Kirk? I'll give you a perspective as an outsider today. You will never have a definitive answer. Even if the shooter is caught, the truth will remain buried. What people will get is not facts, but the version of events that certain forces want you to believe. It's predictable. The killer will be branded as a mentally unstable extremist, or a disgruntled former fan, or it will be framed as some failed self-staged act by Kirk himself. These are the same old cliché. The irony of being gunned down lies less in coincidence and more in the careful planning of those who wanted him gone. Kirk was the youngest spiritual leader of MAGA. Young people naturally gravitated toward someone closer to their age. Trump is too old, Musk is an outsider and an opportunist, and Vance carries the strength of careerism. None of them inspire young conservatives like the way Kirk did. Many younger hardline conservatives accused Trump of betraying MAGA, compromising with the establishment, and caring little about the lives of older young Americans. To them, the older generation of politicians cared only about power, money, indulgence. Kirk, by contrast, tapped directly into the anger of youth. Yes, his rhetoric was extreme. He opposed feminism, LGBT rights, immigration, even denied Palestine's existence. By any standard, he was an extreme reactionary and racist. But in the United States, that alone is not a death sentence. Let's be honest, racism runs deep in American society. Every group practices its own form of racism, even while condemning it publicly. Ask yourself, my friend, I know you cannot speak it out publicly. What likely doomed him was not just his inflammatory rhetoric, but his economic message. In China, there's an old saying, cutting off a man's livelihood is worse than killing his parents. Kirk's politics leaned far-right, calling for a return to a white traditional America. Yet his economic stance leaned left. He demanded a fairer distribution, condemned predatory finance, and hammered away at the daily struggles of young Americans. He pointed out the painful reality. Young Americans can't afford to buy or rent a home, can't eat without taking on debt, and live without hope. Housing affordability ratios have doubled in a generation. The average age for a first home purchase was climbed to 38. More than half of Gen Z relies on microloans or buy now, pay later schemes, even for lunch or a concert ticket. Kirk warned, if these problems remain unsolved, young people will become more radical. He called out payday lenders, installment loan companies, and the shadow debt economy that is pushing an entire generation into debt peonage. He blamed the Federal Reserve's post-2008 policies for inflating asset prices, making home ownership virtually impossible for the young. Unlike traditional conservatives, he did not hesitate to attack financial capital. He questioned why the right defended predatory lenders at all, and argued such companies should be shut down. This stance made him enemies not only among liberals but inside his own Republican camp. Kirk also opposed America's global empire and overseas spending. He was against massive aid for Ukraine, insisting those funds should be redirected to domestic crises, especially housing and debt relief for young Americans. This message fueled a generational revolt. Kirk openly accused the baby boomer elite of selfishness, corruption, and policy choices that ruined America's future. He urged the Republican Party to respond to young voters' economic needs, warning that otherwise they would lose an entire generation. In a sense, Kirk was reciting a new kind of American protest poem. Waves surge on the Mississippi, dark clouds swirl above the Rockies. In a dark and broken world, I stand alone. Anger and blood ignite my chest. The powerful flaunt their lineage. True patriots are nowhere to be found. The oligarchs boast of their wealth, but who spares a thought on the nation's soul? That's why he resonated, not because of racism alone. Plenty of American politicians trade in that. His power came from voicing the crushing economic despair of his generation. In last election, his youth network reportedly boosted Trump's numbers by 10%. But ask yourself, were these young MAGA supporters truly following Trump? Or were they following Kirk? The dynamic looked less like Trump's leadership, and more like the way Hindenburg once relied on a rising Hitler. In the days before his death, Kirk shifted his rhetoric on Jewish capital. He accused the Jewish financial elites of bankrolling progressive open-door movements, and even suggested Mossad agents had blackmailed America's most powerful figures. That may have been the real step too far, the blow that sealed his fate. Kirk had been spewing extreme statements for years without consequence. He had wielded enormous influence for years as well. Why was he silenced now and not before? Think of the old saying, a madman shouting nonsense in the street is tolerated, but the moment he speaks a dangerous truth, his fate runs out. Follow me, an Eastern perspective to see the world.